I took my sister-in-law's kids in while she was in rehab. I cooked, cleaned, and made sure they got to school. One night, I overheard her on the phone saying I was playing mom and trying to steal her family. The next morning, CPS knocked on my door. I never wanted kids. Not because I don't love them, but because I didn't grow up with the best example of family, and I was always scared I wouldn't know how to be a good mom. My husband and I were okay with that. We built a quiet life just outside Cincinnati. We had good jobs, a clean house, a dog named Mabel, and dinners together almost every night. Peaceful. Predictable. Then Natalie happened. Natalie is my husband's younger sister. She's beautiful, charming when she wants to be, but underneath all that, she's always been a mess. She's been in and out of trouble since her early 20s. DUIs, shoplifting, bad relationships. She got hooked on painkillers after a car accident, and it spiraled fast. By the time she was 33, she had 2 kids, no job, and CPS at her door. When they called us, it wasn't even a question. Of course we'd take them. Her son, Ben, was 9. Her daughter, Lila, had just turned 6. They showed up with 1 backpack each. Clothes that didn't fit. Lila still had lice from the last shelter. They were scared.
Shut down.
And for the first few weeks, I didn't even know where to start. I got them new clothes. Took them to the doctor. Signed them up at our local school. Bought bunk beds and soft sheets and nightlights. I made sure they had hot meals and school lunches and Halloween costumes. We found a great therapist who specialized in trauma. I never tried to be their mom. I just showed up for them. And slowly, they opened up. Ben started getting A's in school. Lila stopped wetting the bed. They made friends. They laughed. They called our dog their dog. And when they slipped up and accidentally called me mom, I didn't correct them. I just smiled, hugged them, and said, "You're safe here." Meanwhile, Natalie was gone. Completely gone for the first 8 months. We didn't know where she was. Then she checked into a rehab center outside Louisville. I drove the kids 3 hours each way to visit her twice a month. I never talked bad about her. I brought pictures. I helped them write letters. I tried. After 14 months, she finally got clean enough to be released. She came back to town and got a subsidized apartment. Asked if she could start seeing the kids. I agreed, even though I was nervous. The visits started small, Saturdays at the park, supervised by me or my husband. She was awkward. The kids were confused. But I kept telling them, "She's your mom. It's okay to love her." Then one Thursday night, everything changed. She had stopped by unannounced, said she had some old toys of theirs. I made tea. We chatted awkwardly in the kitchen. I could tell she was uncomfortable in our house. Probably because it looked too stable, too lived in.
Too different from what she had.
She stepped outside to take a phone call. I stayed in the kitchen doing dishes. The window was cracked. I heard every word. She said, "Yeah, she's playing mom like it's her house, her family. She acts like I died. I know what she's doing, trying to turn them against me. I'm gonna get my kids back, and I'm gonna make sure she's out of the picture." My stomach dropped. I stood there, dripping water from my hands, just stunned. It was like being slapped in the face after running a marathon for someone else. I didn't say anything to her. I couldn't. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor in the hallway outside the kids' room, just listening to them breathe. I kept thinking, she's going to take them. She's going to erase everything I did. And I can't stop her. And then the next morning, like some sick joke, CPS showed up. 2 women. Stern faces.
Clipboards.
We received an anonymous report. They said I was emotionally manipulating the kids, creating false dependency, that I was alienating the children from their biological mother. All words straight from someone who knew exactly what would raise red flags. They looked through the kitchen, the bedrooms, asked the kids weird questions. "Do you feel like you can talk to your mom? Has your aunt ever told you bad things about your mom?" Lila cried. Ben froze up and went silent. I was shaking. They said they'd be back. They said there'd be a case review. And just like that, 14 months of sacrifice was hanging by a thread. That's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with a broken person. I was dealing with someone dangerous. So I stopped trusting. I stopped hoping she'd get better. And I started building a case. I printed every single receipt, pulled every email and message, recorded every call. I talked to their therapist and asked for her professional opinion in writing. I got the school counselor to document behavioral changes. I called my lawyer. I didn't tell Natalie. I wanted her to keep talking, keep texting, keep thinking I was scared. Because if she was going to try and take me down, she'd better be ready for what I was about to do next. After CPS came, everything changed in my house. The kids weren't the same. Ben started asking if they were going to be taken away. Lila started clinging to me in her sleep, crying every night. I did my best to keep things normal. Breakfast at 7:15, school drop-off at 8, therapy on Tuesdays, library visits on Thursdays, but the tension was everywhere. It lived in the walls. It lived in me. And Natalie? She acted like nothing had happened. She texted like usual. Can I take them Saturday? Want to bring them to the zoo? She showed up with cheap toys and snacks and pretended to be this picture of recovery. But I saw it in her eyes now. There was calculation, resentment, a hunger to rewrite the past. I didn't confront her about what I heard on the phone. I played dumb. I let her believe I was nervous. I even let her take the kids for longer stretches, sometimes 6 hours at a time. I wanted to see what she'd do when she thought the leash was loosening. And she slipped. Ben came back from one visit saying, "Mom says you don't want us to be with her 'cause it makes you feel important." He didn't even understand it. He just repeated it. Lila said Natalie told her, "When you come live with me, you won't have to eat broccoli anymore. And you can have your own iPad." Lila has food anxiety. I've spent over a year working through it with her in therapy. Natalie knew that. But it wasn't just manipulation. It turned into straight-up sabotage. One Monday morning, the school called, said no one had shown up to pick up the kids after soccer practice the night before. I was stunned. I hadn't known they had practice. Because Natalie signed them up without telling me. She'd registered them under her name and gave my address. I was listed as an emergency contact, not the guardian. And because of that, they didn't call me when no one showed up. The kids waited outside for over an hour. I was livid. I confronted her that night.
I didn't yell.
I just asked calmly, "Why would you register them for a sport and not tell me?" Her response? She laughed. "They're my kids. I don't need to ask permission to sign them up for stuff. You're acting like they're yours." I said, "No. I'm acting like someone who's raised them for 14 months while you were in a facility." She said, "You're acting like a wannabe mom." It's creepy, honestly. That word stuck with me.
Creepy.
After everything I did for her, for them, she wanted to paint me as some deranged maternal thief. I didn't react in front of her. I said, "Okay," and closed the door. But I called my lawyer that night. We filed an emergency hearing to review guardianship. I wanted legal protection, not adoption. I wasn't trying to take them away from her forever. I just needed the court to acknowledge that they had stability with me and that returning them prematurely could hurt them. Natalie found out, and she lost it. She came banging on our door 2 nights later. My husband was home. She was screaming on the porch, "You evil bitch. I knew this was your plan. You want to replace me. You're gonna regret this." My husband called the cops. That was the first time the kids saw their mom put in the back of a squad car. She wasn't arrested, just detained to cool down. But the damage was done. CPS came again. This time, Natalie had filed a formal complaint that I was exploiting the children for legal gain. She said I was using their trauma to enrich myself. That I was parading as their savior to look good in the community. She said I brainwashed them. And then came the hardest part. The custody hearing. It was scheduled 2 months out. Until then, everything stayed the same on paper, but the court appointed a guardian ad litem to monitor us both. They interviewed me, my husband, the kids, the school, the therapist. They talked to Natalie. They examined every part of our lives. Every week that passed, I felt like I was drowning under the weight of someone else's lies. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was terrified of saying the wrong thing, terrified of what Natalie might do next. And the kids, they felt it. Ben got in a fight at school. Lila started chewing her nails until they bled. And I started to wonder, maybe Natalie wasn't trying to get them back out of love. Maybe she just couldn't stand that someone else had succeeded where she failed. Maybe her revenge wasn't just about her kids. Maybe it was about me. About 3 weeks before the custody hearing, things got quiet. Too quiet. Natalie stopped texting.
No CPS visits.
No one announced drop-ins. It felt like the eye of the storm.
I didn't relax, though.
I knew her. When Natalie went silent, it meant she was working on something. And I was right. One Friday, the Guardian ad litem called me. She sounded cautious. She said, "We received some concerning materials from Ms. Natalie Bennett. I'd like to ask you about them directly before I make any formal reports." I asked her what she meant. She said Natalie had submitted emails, allegedly from me, talking about how I planned to raise the kids as mine and cut their mother out completely. The emails talked about manipulating the system and even mentioned paying off the therapist to support my case.
My mouth went dry.
Asked her to forward the emails to me. When I opened them, I wanted to scream. They were fake, clearly fake. The email address was similar to mine, but one letter off. She'd created a lookalike Gmail account using my name and sent fabricated messages between it and a burner account posing as a friend. The grammar wasn't even right, but to someone who didn't know me well, it could have seemed real. I immediately looped in my attorney. He had our IT guy pull IP logs, timestamps, everything. He confirmed what I already knew. It wasn't me. But still, it rattled the Guardian ad litem. She was obligated to submit the materials to the court for consideration. We had to file a formal response and start the process of proving they were forged. Natalie wasn't fighting for her kids anymore. She was fighting to destroy me. And then she made her biggest mistake. She tried to get the therapist fired. She submitted a complaint to the licensing board, claiming the therapist coached Ben and Lila to favor me. She accused her of bias, unprofessionalism, even fraud. She listed me as a co-conspirator. But what she didn't realize was that the therapist had recorded every session, with Natalie's written consent from when she was still in rehab. She had full documentation of every behavior the kids had exhibited under both households. And those records showed that when they were with me, the kids were regulated, rested, and improving. When they spent weekends with Natalie, the regression was clear. When we submitted that to the court, it hit like a grenade. And that's when something shifted. The school counselor called me privately one morning. She said, "I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I've been approached by Natalie. She wanted me to write a letter saying you made Lila cry in front of the class. It never happened, obviously. I just thought you should know she's reaching." Natalie wasn't just spiraling. She was desperate. So I did something I hadn't done before. I met with her, face to face. Neutral ground. A Panera near downtown. My husband came too. She showed up late, sunglasses on, jittery. She sat down, looked around like she expected someone to ambush her. I said, "Why are you doing this?" She said, "You think I don't see what you're doing? You build a life on my kids. You want them to forget me." I said, "No, Natalie. I kept them from forgetting you. You disappeared. I made sure they remembered you as something good." She leaned in, eyes sharp. "I will ruin you in court. I'll drag you through hell. I'll burn it all down before I let you win." I didn't respond. My husband took my hand. We stood up and walked out. And as we left, I realized something. She didn't care what was best for the kids. She just couldn't stand the fact that someone else had done better with her own children. She didn't want to raise them. She wanted to own them. That's when I stopped thinking about defense. It was time to go on offense. The week of the custody hearing, I barely slept. My lawyer said we had everything we needed: therapist records, school testimony, forged emails traced back to Natalie's IP address, even a restraining order request based on her harassment. but I'd seen what she was capable of. I didn't trust that truth would be enough. The kids knew something was coming. Ben kept asking if he and Lila were going to have to live in two places again. Lila drew pictures of two houses with a big red X through one. I couldn't promise them anything. All I could do was show up, speak the truth, and hold the line. When the hearing started, Natalie walked in like a martyr. Modest dress, no makeup, arms wrapped around herself like she was the one under attack. She avoided my eyes. I wasn't surprised. She testified first. Said she was a recovering mother just trying to rebuild her life. Said she made bad choices but was now stable. Claimed I had overstepped. Tried to replace her. Told the judge I created dependency in the children and manipulated their emotions. Then she brought up the fake emails. My lawyer didn't flinch. He slid over our evidence. Tech reports, email headers, matching IP logs. Showed how the friend she was emailing from was a burner address created on the same day as the messages, using her recovery center's Wi-Fi. The judge stopped her mid-sentence. MS. Bennett, are you aware that submitting falsified evidence in a custody hearing is not only unethical, but criminal? Her face went pale. She stammered something about being set up.
The judge didn't buy it.
Then our witnesses spoke. The school counselor, the kid's therapist, even our neighbor who saw Natalie screaming on our porch. All of them said the same thing. The kids were safe, stable, and thriving with me. That removing them would be a disruption they might never recover from. Finally, I spoke. I told the truth. How I never planned to be a mom. How I just wanted them to feel safe. How I showed up because Natalie couldn't. How I protected their memory of her, even when she didn't deserve it. How I only filed for legal guardianship after she tried to weaponize the system against me. I didn't cry. I looked the judge in the eye and said, I'm not asking to take them away from their mother. I'm asking you to protect them from what she's become. He ruled the next morning. Full permanent guardianship, granted to me and my husband. Natalie was allowed supervised visitation, contingent on her completing 6 more months of outpatient therapy and parenting classes. No overnight visits. No unsupervised pickups. The court appointed a third-party supervisor for any contact. But that wasn't the end of it. The judge referred Natalie's falsified evidence to the county prosecutor. She was later charged with filing false documents and obstructing a court proceeding. She got 12 months probation and mandatory counseling, but more importantly, the court saw through her. Every system she tried to weaponize turned against her in the end. CPS dropped her complaint. The therapist kept her license. And Natalie's name now carried a legal stain that would follow her for years. She tried to destroy me with lies. I buried her with the truth.
It took 2 years of my life.
2 years of exhaustion, fear, and trauma.
I didn't come out unscarred.
I lost friends who didn't want to take sides. My marriage went through hell. My health suffered. But I got to keep what mattered most. Those kids wake up every morning in a warm bed, in a clean home, with a hot breakfast. They still call her mom, and I never take that from them. But they know who tucks them in. They know who stayed. Natalie wanted revenge. What she got was justice. And I didn't even have to lie to give it to her.